I just wanted to sort of, if you'd allow me to just sort of create a bit of a background to where I'd like to ask the question. It's a question I've been asked by my friends, and I've never found a satisfying answer. And I think, as you would have found within what you have been doing in your research, is that we are very much formed by the society we are part of. And I believe, as most of you are academics and teachers and so on, I think in terms of a moral obligation, one of the worst things is wasted potential. So my question is, how, in terms of countries and so on, we're all very fixated about looking within our own borders and not outside of our own borders. And almost makes more sense to have a global society that's all interacting with one another. And so you end up having a group that sits without that and not having that potential. So what I wanted to ask is, what are your thoughts on sort of creating this globalist view and assisting more countries coming up to speed and sort of creating a global community, which rather than a tribalistic one, if I may?
Wow, that's a big question. I think it's possibly beyond my expertise, but I mean, it's definitely the way we should be thinking, and the way I don't know how we would ever get there. There is just such a tendency for politicians, at least, if not people generally, to be very nationalistic. In Australia even, and it's possibly the same in South Africa as well, where we have different states within Australia, they are even tribalistic. And they, whenever there are international test results come out, New South Wales likes to say, oh, we're better than South Australia and Western Australia and Queensland, and, Victoria must have cheated. So it even happens within countries. So it's probably something about human nature, but I think the more we can think on a global scale, definitely, and not be tribal, because I think we all win if everybody does better.
Yeah, I would very much agree with you. I personally very much enjoy looking at the space agencies of the world, because I think that is a perfect example of what we can achieve as a collective. So yes. I suppose that's why I preemphasize it with saying that wasted potential is one of the worst things morally. And I find it somewhat bothersome to consider that there may be a child living in a rural country that doesn't have access to what we may have. And so you may miss out on finding the next Einstein, so to speak.
Yeah, I think there are probably millions of such children around the world. And I know one of the dangers, that the student I mentioned who is doing a PhD now came from a very low SES school and whatever, there's a danger in sort of pointing to those students. I mean, she's marvellous and you want to say what a fabulous job she's done, but there's a danger that people will point to those examples and say, well, look, you can achieve it if, you can do anything from that background if you work hard enough and if you're smart enough. And we forget the fact that the people who do manage to achieve, often they've got terribly lucky, or they're very exceptional in various ways. And there'd be a whole bunch of students that she went through school with who could have achieved wonderful things if they'd been as lucky as her, or had just been in a different suburb. So it's, there just must be millions of people with wasted potential around the world, and it really is tragic. It actually makes me quite angry when I think about those things.
Well, thank you very much for answering my question. I suppose perhaps it is quite, in fact, a